Hello, Abnormal Family. I decided to do a drop today for New Year's Eve. I debated on it and figured I got the best fans out there, so they're going to watch this and they're going to smash that like button and set a record on this video. So feel free to also share it out to your other social media. And let's get into this encounter. My dad, let's see here. He was talking about his dad right there. Let me get into the main part. Alright. It was 1987, early fall, on a Montana highway. I was transporting live pigs from one farm to another. Late into the night, around 11 p.m., I decided to stop to get some shut-eye, so I found a small run off of the road. After walking around the semi and trailer to make sure everything was locked down and secure, I got up in the cab and finally went to sleep. Around 3 a.m., I was awoken by a harsh squealing of the pigs. I jumped up and hopped out of the truck to check what was going on. When I got around to the back of the trailer, I saw some blood on the ground and a bit of flesh. I was very uneasy because I didn't understand what was going on. At that moment, I heard something behind me. It sounded like an incredibly low-toned growl. This made my skin crawl, so I started making my way back to the front. As I got to the front, I got back in my truck and decided to go ahead and leave. There was no way I was going to be able to get back to sleep. I drove for about 2 hours before coming to a truck stop. The sun was finally making its way up, and now I was going to be able to get a better look at the trailer and see what was going on. Looking at the trailer now, I noticed that one of the pigs was dead from what it looked like a huge cut, which caused blood loss. I instantly was concerned about what was trying to get into the trailer. Another driver came over and asked what had happened. I replied, "I have no idea." Then asked, "What do you think?" This guy looked over the whole area and then got really close to the trailer and started to grab something. "What are you doing?" I asked. He looked up and showed me what he found. "Well, did you not see this?" He lifted his hand with a large dark form. I could tell it was a black claw. Goosebumps came over my whole body. I didn't know what to say or think at the moment. He gave me the claw and he told me to stay on the road. He had heard stories of truckers going missing on the same stretch of road I came from. I went ahead and filled up my fuel tanks and made my way on to make the drop-off. As I got to my destination, which was a small farm, I backed the load up to the barn doors and went to talk to the farmer. He greeted me outside the barn doors, and, confused look, he spoke up and asked, "What happened?" "You were supposed to be here 1 hour ago." Well, I was very hesitant to tell him. Why, I guess I just went ahead and was running a little behind. Well, something happened on the road when I stopped for some sleep. Well, the back end of the trailer. I paused for a moment and he spoke up. "Well, what?" "Well, something tried to get into the trailer and it killed one of the pigs," I replied. He looked very confused and asked what road I was on. I told him Country Road 31 east for about 85 miles. He all of a sudden had this look of fear come over him, like he had just found out someone died. I got a little curious and I asked what the problem was. He finally spoke up and he asked if I said or heard anything. I replied with, "Well, now that you mention it, I heard a growl like from a bear or something." He didn't seem okay with that answer. He said, "Well, buddy, we haven't had no bears in this area and over 60 years that you just drove through." I was very confused. There was a story, a legend really, that over 200-mile radius has one or two Sasquatch use this for hunting grounds. I laughed, but he looked at me like I was an idiot, but recommended that I take my next load over to the main highway to avoid another run-in. Thankfully, my next load was goats from his farm to another, about 400 miles in the other direction. The farmer loaded up the goats, and I was on my way while thinking about the old farmer's story and his warning to stay away from the country road. I scoffed at the thought to myself and thought he was just joking with me. I went ahead and stopped at the truck stop before the county road and ate a lunch. I might as well have been a dinner. By the time I was done eating, it was getting dark. Not really thinking about it, I got back in the semi and started my way to the next stop. As I passed a sign saying I was starting on the country road, I had a feeling of dread coming over me. But I kept going. About 75 miles down the country road, my truck blew a tire, and I had to pull off to the side of the road to check how bad it was. As an owner-operator, I was able to do most things needed when it came to my rig. I saw the tire wasn't blown out, but it just had a nail in it. This was better than a blowout. I went back to the cab of the semi and started looking for my plug kit so I could fix the tire and get back on the road. Since it was dark, it was colder and my plugs were too cold to use, so I had to put them on the dash to warm up before using them. As I was waiting, I heard the goats bleating and making some noise, so I reached under my seat for my pistol from when I was in the Army. It wasn't anything special, just an old .45 caliber 1911 standard issue for servicemen. I got out of the truck and I made my way to the rear, only to see the rear entry had been opened and one of the goats was halfway out with its throat torn out. I went into panic mode and started looking around because I think whatever it was, I interrupted it. Whatever was trying to pull that goat out. At that moment, I heard the growl again, but it was closer, so since it was dark, I pulled my flashlight up and pointed it toward the growl, and all I could see was a silhouette with yellow eyes, which were almost 7.5 feet off the ground, could have been 8. I started to back up, and as I did, it stepped forward a little more into the light, and I could tell you, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never have believed it. There it was, standing on 2 legs, which is only what I could say was a Bigfoot with blood falling out of its mouth. I pulled my gun out, pointed it toward it, and it stopped like it knew what it was. But it started growling and snarling louder. I wanted to shoot, but I was overcome with fear, yet I was still walking backwards. And the next thought was, if I could make it to the cab of the semi-truck, I have a Polaroid camera, and I would also try to get a picture of this creature. So I lowered my gun and I walked even faster backwards. As I made it to the door, I heard the goats going crazy again. I opened the door and reached for my camera and then started making my way back to the rear of the trailer. I stopped right before I got to the door and heard the growl again in front of me. So I pointed my flashlight with one hand and the camera with the other hand, and at the same time, and took a picture. After taking the picture, I turned around and ran back to the cab of the truck, got in, and just drove off. I laid the photo down on the other seat and just drove. I didn't care about the tire anymore or the goats in the back. I was in flight mode and I wanted to get out of there to a safe place. If you had seen this thing and the amount of blood and the strength that it carried, you would have been running too. I drove for 2 hours straight before seeing lights from the gas station. I pulled in and slammed on the brakes and jumped out. The gas station attendant came out to me asking what was the rush, and he said my face showed pure fear. He brought me inside and told me he would have one of his mechanics fix the tire, which was now mostly torn up and on the rim. As I sat down inside, I noticed I had grabbed the photo off the seat to look at it. At first my eyes were dry and I didn't see anything. The attendant walked up behind me and said, "Creepy, where did you take that at?" I looked at him in confusion and I wiped my face down with a wet washcloth, and I looked again and I saw what he saw, which was 2 big yellow glowing eyes in the dark silhouette. I called my next stop and told them that my truck had broken down and it wasn't going to be able to make the delivery on time. He was a little mad, but sent another driver to pick up the load. After I got off the phone with him, I went to get my truck because it was broken down, and I just wanted to go home to my family. I had been driving for a while, and when I got to the shop, the mechanic told me that he put the new tire on and to take it easy next time, and he was just kind of joking. I looked at him. I stopped talking, and he handed me the keys and said, "I'm sorry, you look stressed." After about 18 hours behind the wheel, I finally made it home. I was greeted by my son and wife. I couldn't have felt happier to be any further away. My son, as always, got in the truck to get my stuff and grabbed the photo too. He looked at it and he was creeped out. He asked me where I took the picture. I told him I wasn't ready to talk about it. My dad told me that my grandpa told him the whole story about when he used to drive that road too, and they had had many encounters. So what do you guys think? I kind of think that the first encounter he had, and then whenever it got the goats, I'm kind of thinking this thing might have been underneath that trailer holding on, and that's how it was able to attack twice. Do you guys think it was hitchhiking with him? Do you think maybe it was hidden somewhere on that semi underneath it or something and was riding because it knew that there would be food? Or do you think it was just they were hunting and it just happened to be he stopped in two places where there happened to be Sasquatch? Let me know in the comments what you all think about that. Also, guys, I want to wish you a very happy New Year's tonight, and I hope you all are able to join me tonight on the live with Sarah. We're going to do a little live tonight, and it's going to be a boots on the ground at the bridge because they're saying this New Year's Eve has a special moon that a lot of things are supposed to gain power from, and they're saying it could be a bad night. So we're going to do a little boots on the ground in the dark and check out the old bridge and see if we can get anything to come up around us. So we hope you can join us. The thumbnail's out, so we'll click on the thumbnail, click notify, and you'll get a double notification whenever we go live. Thank you so much for your support, guys. Look forward to seeing each and every one of you next year. Have a great, happy New Year's. Be safe, guys, and make many memories. Keep your head on a swivel, and don't be something's dinner.